Graceland. A name that echoes with music, mystery, and memories. Behind those white gates once lived the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. But this story isn't just about him. It's about the woman who carried his legacy, and the secret that would one day destroy everything she thought she knew. Born on February 1st, 1968, Lisa Marie Presley entered the world under the blinding light of fame. The only child of Elvis and Priscilla Presley, she was destined to live in the shadow of greatness and tragedy. To the public, she was the little princess of Graceland. But inside those walls, behind the laughter and camera flashes, life wasn't as perfect as it seemed. Elvis was larger than life, adored by millions, torn apart by fame. Priscilla, young and elegant, tried to hold the family together. But even in love, distance grew. The pressures of stardom, the touring, the late-night sessions, slowly created a home filled with silence. As a child, Lisa watched her parents drift apart. She loved them both, but her world was split in two, between the king of rock and the queen of shadows. In later interviews, Lisa reflected on those days. Lisa Marie. It's strange growing up when everyone knows your name before you can even walk. I didn't have a normal life, not even close. To the world, Lisa was the heir to an empire. To herself, she was just a daughter longing for truth, love, and belonging. And yet, in all the years of fame and fortune, a quiet unease followed her, a feeling that something wasn't right. In an old interview, Priscilla once said, "Priscilla, Lisa is everything to me. She's my whole world. And there are things the world will never understand." It was a simple remark, but decades later, those few words would take on a whole new meaning. Because behind that perfect Presley image, a secret was waiting, a truth that would rewrite history. As Elvis's health declined, Lisa's memories of her father grew heavier. She adored him, the music, the magic, the man who called her Button. But even then, something inside her felt incomplete. When Elvis passed in 1977, Lisa was just 9. The king was gone and the kingdom felt empty. What remained were echoes and unanswered questions. Decades would pass. Lisa would grow, marry, perform, and grieve. But deep within her heart, the same question lingered. Who am I, really? And one day, a single DNA test would shatter the answer she thought she knew. In the years following her father's death, Lisa Marie Presley tried to live a normal life in a world that would never see her as normal. Every move she made, every friendship she formed was shadowed by a single name: Presley. She grew up under a microscope. The press followed her to school, to concerts, to parties. Fans saw her as a living extension of Elvis, but few ever saw the pain behind her smile. As she entered her teenage years, rebellion became her shield. Lisa fought against expectations, against comparisons, and sometimes against her own family. People close to her began to whisper that she didn't look much like her mother. The eyes, the shape of her face, even her temperament, different. Family friends made small comments, never loud enough for the headlines, but enough to reach her ears. And once heard, they could never be unheard. Lisa Marie. I used to hear things, people saying, "She doesn't have Priscilla's features," or "She's got her father's energy, but not her mother's grace." It used to make me angry, but deep down, I didn't know why. Rumors spread quietly through Memphis society. A few old acquaintances from the Graceland years hinted that something unusual surrounded Lisa's birth. A name was mentioned more than once, a nurse who was unusually protective of the Presley baby during her first weeks. But no one dared to speak openly. Lisa had always felt a distance between herself and Priscilla. They appeared together at events, posed for photos, but their bond was often described as strained. Those close to them said they argued more than they agreed. Their relationship seemed polite, formal, but never deeply affectionate. Lisa Marie. I love my mother, but sometimes it feels like there's a wall between us, like she's holding something back. It was a subtle tension that grew with time. Lisa moved out young, started her own life, made her own mistakes, and married men who brought even more headlines. Still, despite everything, the fame, the fortune, and the failures, she could never escape the feeling that her story had missing pages. Then one day, while reviewing an old storage box filled with her father's memorabilia, Lisa found a letter written by one of Elvis's trusted aides. The note was brief, but one line stood out. Some truths were never meant to be told, at least not while she's still young. The letter wasn't signed, but Lisa recognized the handwriting from photographs. It belonged to one of the men who had been with Elvis until the very end. She sat alone for hours, reading that line over and over again. It didn't mention what truth or who it referred to, but the timing matched the year she was born. It was enough to ignite her curiosity and her fear. Lisa Marie. It haunted me. I couldn't stop thinking, what truth? What secret? From that moment, her doubts grew stronger. The unease that had followed her since childhood began to feel like a warning. There were whispers in the family, subtle silences during conversations, and glances exchanged when her name came up. Priscilla never addressed the rumors directly. Whenever the subject of Lisa's birth arose, she would change the topic, her tone firm, almost defensive. Lisa Marie. Whenever I asked about my birth, she'd say, "You were born at Baptist Memorial. A perfect baby girl." That was it. Every time the same answer. But I could feel there was more. By her early 50s, Lisa had learned to ignore gossip. But this time, something deep inside told her that ignoring wasn't enough. She needed answers. Not from magazines, not from memories, but from science. And so, after years of silence and speculation, Lisa made a decision that would change her life forever. She would take a DNA test. The box arrived one quiet morning in early spring. A small, ordinary package with the words DNA collection kit printed on it. Lisa Marie Presley held it in her hands, staring at it for a long time. Something so small, yet powerful enough to rewrite her entire history. She had ordered it herself, late one night after weeks of hesitation. It wasn't meant for anyone else to know. Not her family, not her children, not even her closest friends. This was personal. A secret investigation into the truth of her own life. Lisa Marie. I told myself it was just for curiosity, just a way to confirm what I already knew. But a part of me, a part I tried to ignore, hoped it would explain everything. She followed the simple instructions. A small cotton swab, a sealed tube, her name written in neat letters. It felt strange, sending her own identity away in the mail, like surrendering a piece of her soul to science. The waiting was the hardest part. Days turned into weeks, each one filled with quiet anxiety. She kept thinking about her father, about the legacy she carried, and about her mother, whose presence in her life had always felt slightly distant. When the email finally arrived, she sat frozen for several minutes before opening it. The screen flickered, and then the words appeared. Her DNA confirmed her paternal match to Elvis Presley, exactly as expected. But the maternal side didn't match Priscilla Presley. Lisa blinked, reading and rereading the data. It wasn't a typo. It wasn't a mistake in the report. It was scientifically impossible for Priscilla to be her biological mother. Her hands trembled as she stared at the screen. The air in the room seemed to vanish. Lisa Marie. No, this can't be real. It's wrong. It has to be wrong. She ran the test again using another service under a different name. When the second result came back identical, the shock turned into disbelief. Lisa Marie. I felt like the ground opened under me, like my whole life was built on a lie. For days, she didn't speak to anyone. She avoided phone calls and emails. She locked herself in her room, replaying every memory, every word her mother had ever said to her. She remembered moments that suddenly felt different. Priscilla's distant hugs, the lack of family resemblance, the way conversations about her birth always ended abruptly. Lisa began collecting her medical records, birth certificates, and hospital details. Everything seemed to line up, except small inconsistencies that no one had ever questioned. Signatures missing from certain papers, dates slightly off, witness names that didn't match public records. Lisa Marie. I started wondering if there was something deeper, if someone had hidden the truth intentionally. She reached out quietly to her lawyers, asking for help verifying the paperwork. She didn't tell them the reason at first, only that she needed to know everything about her own birth. Days later, one of them called her back with a strange detail. The nurse listed on her birth record had disappeared from the hospital staff list the year after she was born. No explanation, no forwarding address, nothing. Lisa felt a chill run through her. Lisa Marie. I didn't know what to think anymore. Part of me wanted to believe it was just a clerical mistake. The other part knew. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Her next step would be the hardest of all, confronting the possibility that her entire family history had been altered. She wasn't ready to face Priscilla yet, not until she knew everything. Lisa Marie. If this is true, I need to find out who my real mother is. I need to know why it was hidden from me. And with that, Lisa began an investigation that would take her deep into the hidden corners of her own past, to the very people who helped bring her into the world. Lisa Marie Presley was no stranger to pain. She had faced loss, heartbreak, and endless scrutiny from the media. But nothing compared to the silence that followed the DNA results. It was the kind of silence that comes when the truth is too heavy to speak aloud. Lisa Marie. I didn't know who to trust anymore. Every document, every photograph, every memory, I started questioning all of it. She began her search quietly, using private investigators rather than public appeals. She knew that if the press caught wind of what she was doing, it would explode into chaos before she had any real answers. Her first step was to contact Baptist Memorial Hospital in Memphis, the place listed on her birth certificate. When she requested her original medical records, she was told that several files from 1968 had been misplaced or destroyed. That, by itself, might not have meant much. But then she learned that her file was one of only a handful that had gone missing. Lisa Marie. They said it was a coincidence. But I don't believe in coincidences like that. Not with my family. The investigator, a retired Tennessee police officer named Michael Crane, started looking into the staff who had worked at the hospital during the time of Lisa's birth. Most of them were either retired or deceased. But one name stood out: Margaret Holloway, a nurse whose name had appeared on multiple Presley-related documents. Margaret had left the hospital suddenly in 1970. No resignation notice. No trace of where she went. Her record simply ended. Crane dug deeper, searching public archives, local addresses, and newspaper mentions. Finally, he found an old community newsletter from 1978 mentioning a woman named Margaret Holloway moving to a small town in northern Mississippi. The timing fit. Lisa and Crane drove there quietly, avoiding attention. In a dusty local records office, they found a death certificate. Margaret Holloway had died in 1994. She was survived by two sisters, Lisa Marie. When I read her name, I felt something strange, like recognition. I don't know why, but I felt connected to her. Crane located one of the sisters, a woman in her 80s named Ruth, who agreed to meet Lisa privately. The meeting was quiet, emotional, and heavy with curiosity on both sides. Ruth looked at Lisa closely, almost studying her face. Then she said softly, "You look like her. You look like Margaret, Lisa Marie." I didn't know what to say. I thought maybe she just meant it kindly, but she meant it literally. Lisa explained her DNA discovery and the missing hospital files. Ruth hesitated, then went to the back of her small house and returned with a faded photograph. It showed Margaret Holloway, smiling, standing beside a man in a hospital uniform. In her arms, she was holding a newborn baby. Ruth handed Lisa the picture. Lisa's heart stopped. The baby's blanket had a small embroidered tag, the initials LMP Lisa Marie. It was like looking into another world. My name, my initials, on a stranger's blanket. Ruth admitted that her sister had once confessed to being involved in something at the hospital that haunted her until the day she died. She never revealed the details, only that it involved a famous family and a baby that was switched for protection. Lisa left the house that day in tears. For the first time, the rumors no longer felt like rumors. They felt real. Back in Memphis, Crane continued his investigation, tracking down 2 retired doctors who had worked at Baptist Memorial during that period. One of them, now in his 90s, reluctantly admitted that there had been unusual activity around Elvis's family during Lisa's birth. He remembered that additional security had been ordered and that not all the staff were told why. Lisa Marie. When he told me that, I realized this wasn't some wild theory. There really had been something hidden. The next step was to confirm it scientifically. Lisa contacted Ruth again and asked if she would be willing to provide a DNA sample for comparison. Ruth agreed. When the results came back, the answer was undeniable. Ruth Holloway shared maternal DNA with Lisa Marie Presley. The Holloway family was biologically connected to her. Lisa Marie, I just sat there staring at the results. I thought I'd feel relief, but all I felt was grief. My whole life I was someone else's child, and no one ever told me. Her mind spun with questions. Why had she been taken from her real mother? Did Elvis know? Was it arranged, or was it an accident that got buried under fame and fear? Lisa wasn't ready to face Priscilla yet, not until she understood why. But deep inside, she knew the moment was coming, a confrontation decades in the making. The truth had a name now. Margaret Holloway. For weeks, Lisa Marie Presley repeated it to herself like a mantra, trying to make sense of what it meant. A woman she had never met, a woman long gone, might have been her real mother. The thought was almost too big to hold. Lisa Marie. I wanted to hate her for leaving me, but how can you hate someone you don't even know? What if she didn't have a choice? The DNA test connecting Lisa to the Holloway family was undeniable. Science had spoken. But understanding why this happened would take more than data. It would take courage. Lisa returned to Mississippi to visit Margaret's grave. It was a simple headstone under a large oak tree. There were no flowers, no photographs, just her name and 2 dates, 1941, 1994. Lisa knelt beside it and whispered softly, Lisa Marie, if you really are my mother, I forgive you, but I need to know why. She left the cemetery with more peace than she expected, but also a determination she hadn't felt before. It was time to confront the past directly, even if that meant facing Priscilla. Back in Los Angeles, Lisa requested a private meeting. They hadn't spoken in weeks. When Priscilla arrived, her expression was calm but guarded. Lisa Marie. Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Priscilla. Of course. What is it? Lisa Marie. Did you give birth to me? There was silence. A long, unbearable silence. Priscilla looked away, her hands trembling slightly. Lisa Marie. Please, just tell me the truth. I've already done the tests. Priscilla didn't deny it. She didn't even ask what tests. She simply sighed, a deep, heavy sigh, and said quietly, Priscilla, it was for your safety. Lisa Marie. What are you talking about? My safety from what? Priscilla. There were threats, Lisa. People who wanted to hurt Elvis. People who targeted us. The hospital was a mess that night. There were changes made. You were meant to be protected. Lisa stared at her, confused and furious all at once. Lisa Marie. So you're saying you just took someone else's baby? Priscilla. No, it wasn't like that. It was complicated. Elvis agreed. It was the only way to keep you safe. We raised you as our own. You were loved. Lisa shook her head. Lisa Marie. Loved? You lied to me my whole life. You built a family on a secret. Priscilla didn't answer. Tears filled her eyes, but she said nothing more. Lisa stood up and walked away, leaving her standing in silence. That night, Lisa wrote in her journal, Lisa Marie, the truth doesn't free you. It destroys you first. But maybe that's the only way to start again. In the weeks that followed, Lisa avoided all Presley family functions. She refused interviews, stopped attending public appearances, and quietly began cutting legal ties to the Presley estate. Her lawyers prepared the paperwork, removing her name from the family trust, selling her shares in Graceland, and dissolving several joint accounts with Priscilla. Friends said she seemed calm, almost relieved. But her eyes told a different story. the look of a woman who had lost her entire sense of belonging. Lisa Marie. I thought I'd feel lighter once I knew the truth, but I just feel empty. Like I don't belong anywhere. Not to her, not to him, not to anyone. Despite the pain, Lisa met with Ruth Holloway one last time, Margaret's sister, to give her thanks. She brought flowers and a framed picture of herself as a child. Lisa handed it to Ruth and said softly, "Lisa Marie, maybe your sister never got to see me grow up, but I hope she knows I turned out okay." Ruth smiled through tears. "Ruth, she'd be proud of you, honey. She really would." As Lisa left, she looked back one last time at the small house, the quiet street, the life she might have had. For the first time, she realized that family isn't always the people who raise you. Sometimes, it's the people who tell you the truth. Lisa Marie. I don't know where I came from anymore, but at least now, I know who I am. It was early morning when Lisa Marie Presley walked through the gates of Graceland for what would be the last time. The sun was rising over the white-columned mansion, casting long shadows across the lawn. The birds were singing, but inside everything felt hollow. She paused at the front steps, where she had once played as a child. The laughter, the Christmas lights, the smell of her father's cologne, it all came rushing back. But the memories didn't comfort her anymore. They only reminded her of the lies built into every brick. Lisa Marie. This house holds my history, but not my truth. Inside, the halls were quiet. Her father's gold records gleamed under the lights. Family photos lined the corridor. Smiling faces, perfect moments frozen in time. She stopped in front of one picture, Elvis holding baby Lisa in his arms. She traced her finger over the glass and whispered, "Lisa Marie, you loved me, even if you didn't know." Her assistant handed her a small envelope, the final set of documents. With a steady hand, Lisa signed each page. Resignation from the Presley Foundation. Termination of family trust membership. Sale of her Graceland interests. Each signature felt like a wound, but also a release. Lisa Marie. For once in my life, I'm not doing this for anyone else. Not for the Presley name. Not for the fans. Not for her. This time, it's for me. The lawyers tried to persuade her otherwise. The estate was worth millions. The name Presley was legacy, power, immortality. But Lisa didn't care. Money could never replace peace. She turned to her assistant, her voice steady. "Lisa Marie, send the last check to the Holloway family. Consider it closure." By afternoon, word had leaked to the media. Headlines exploded. Lisa Marie Presley sells Graceland shares, walks away from family fortune. DNA scandal shocks Presley legacy. Lisa Marie, I'm not who you think I am. Reporters crowded outside her gates. Fans begged for answers. But Lisa stayed silent. She didn't owe anyone her pain anymore. That night, she sat alone on her porch in Tennessee, sipping tea, staring into the quiet night. She thought of Elvis, not as the king, but as a man. The one who sang lullabies, told bedtime stories, and called her Button. The love he gave her was real. That would never change. Lisa Marie. Maybe I wasn't born his daughter by blood, but I was his by heart. And that's enough. A shooting star streaked across the sky. She smiled faintly, a rare, peaceful smile. The kind that only comes after years of storms, days turned into weeks. She sold her Los Angeles home, closed her social media, and moved quietly to the countryside. Far from cameras, far from questions. Neighbors said she spent her mornings walking by the river, writing in a leather notebook, sometimes humming softly to herself, songs that no one ever heard. Lisa Marie. When you cut all ties, you don't lose everything. You just make space for what's real. She began writing a memoir, not about Elvis, not about fame, but about truth, healing, and identity. Her publisher called it the most honest work she'd ever done. In one of her final entries, Lisa wrote, "Family is not defined by blood. It's defined by love, courage, and the truth you choose to live by. I've lost everything that wasn't real and gained everything that is. That was the last anyone heard from her for months. Until one day, a small letter appeared in a Memphis newspaper. No headline, no photo. Just a short message signed, LMP. To those still searching for where they belong, sometimes to find yourself, you must first lose the world. The world had watched Lisa Marie Presley walk away from everything she had known. The fame, the fortune, the name, all gone. Yet in the quiet of her new life, something unexpected emerged. Freedom. Lisa Marie moved to a modest home in the countryside, surrounded by trees, rivers, and the soft sounds of nature. For the first time, no cameras followed her, no reporters asked questions, no headlines screamed. She was just Lisa Marie, not the heiress, not the daughter of Elvis Presley, not the subject of gossip, just herself. Lisa Marie. I thought losing everything would feel like falling, but it didn't. It felt like rising. She began reconnecting with the Holloway family. The bond was small at first, handwritten letters, cautious phone calls, tentative visits. But slowly it grew into something meaningful. For the first time, Lisa felt what it was like to belong without compromise. Lisa Marie. Meeting them was surreal. It's strange to feel like I've finally come home after 50 years. They never knew me, and yet in some ways, they always did. With her new life came new passions. Lisa started writing her memoir, focusing not on the Presley name, but on identity, truth, and resilience. She painted, traveled, and spent long afternoons with friends who valued her for who she was, not her legacy. Her social media presence vanished, replaced by handwritten notes, private journals, and letters to her children. She shared wisdom rather than celebrity stories, guidance rather than gossip. Lisa Marie. The world doesn't define you. The people you love, the choices you make, the truth you carry, that's who you are. In time, Lisa found peace in solitude. She reflected on her father Elvis with love and nostalgia. She forgave Priscilla, not because the past was excusable, but because forgiveness was the only way forward. Lisa Marie. I can't change the past. I can't rewrite my childhood, but I can live now, authentically, honestly, and freely. Her days became a rhythm of quiet reflection, creativity, and connection. She planted a garden filled with wildflowers and trees. She adopted dogs, spending hours walking them along river paths. She learned to play the piano again, not to perform, but to express herself. Through it all, she realized that life is not about the legacy others leave you. It's about the legacy you create for yourself. Lisa Marie. I am no longer just the daughter of. I am Lisa Marie Presley, a woman who survived, discovered, and embraced the truth. And that is enough. In the end, she had cut all ties to the past. She had faced betrayal, secrecy, and loss. But in doing so, she had found herself. And in the stillness, in the quiet of her new life, she finally understood what it truly meant to be free. Lisa Marie. The world can take everything from you, but it can never take the truth you choose to live by. I am living my truth, and that is my new beginning.